Hello and welcome to Economic Forum. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Napoleon Nyani. This week we continue discussing an issue that we started last week. That's agriculture. And that's simply because agriculture is still the mainstay of the Zimbabwean economy, providing employment and also giving sustenance to Zimbabwean families. Through Zim Asset, the government is targeting to transform the agricultural sector into a more inclusive, resilient, vibrant and formidable economic pillar. Recently, the president of Zimbabwe, Comrade Robert Mugabe, enunciated a 10-point plan, which is really based on agriculture and agricultural productivity and on beneficiation. The president also encouraged the promotion of joint ventures and public-private partnerships in improving the performance and efficiency of state-owned enterprises. In our previous episode, we featured an engagement between the Agricultural Rural Development Authority and Lupane State University through the public-private partnership business model, a partnership which is expected to resuscitate agriculture in Matabeleland South Province. The delegation first held a workshop at Lupane State University and later toured Arda Mapisa Estate in Matabeleland South that has about 450 hectares of wheat under irrigation and now ready for harvesting. The final destination was Ingwizi Estate, a project that involves the Zimbabwe National Army, which is also venturing into agriculture since food security complements national security. The 600-hectare estate boasts of a 12-span center pivot covering 150 hectares and other modern farming equipment, which is key in turning around agriculture. The equipment is also a major boost to the ongoing agrarian reform process, whose objective is to enhance sustainable agricultural productivity through capacity building and technology transfer. In its full capacity, Ingwizi Estate has the potential to produce 6,000 metric tons of maize by June next year.
His Excellency, on the 25th of August, pronounced to the nation the 10-point plan for economic development. We all have respective responsibilities to that statement. Others manage policy. We at Arda have to implement that policy and bring reality to the policy. What we see here today is fulfillment of that policy. The roadmap is set. It is up to us now to play our part. Here we have got behind me, for the first time in our nation, a 12-span center pivot covering 150 hectares of land for irrigation. We must immediately register our total appreciation to the Ministry of Energy through ZESA, RIA to be precise. We must extend our gratitude to ZINWA for accessing water to ourselves. It is through that team effort. We are all government departments, government agencies. It's when we come together for a common cause to extract value on behalf of our land. Food insecurity threatens our national security. It is when we implement these measures. Today it's not enough to say one does not have finance. His Excellency, through the public-private partnership business model contained in that 10-point plan, avails us financial options. So it is reaching out, whether it be domestic finance, as the case here, or FDI, foreign direct investment. We at this hour are facing a real challenge of food insecurity. It is when we come together, we can manage and minimize and mitigate and bring food security to reality. What we have witnessed here, you saw the tractors, big tractors, mechanization in action. You saw the dam, water management in action. This is one of the most deprived districts in the country, Mangwe district in Matabeleland South. But the government of Zimbabwe has taken a clear position to say that's where we start. We want food security in Matabeleland South province. Today we are witnessing a new plantation of 600 hectares of maize, which has got a potential yield of at least 10 tons a hectare. That's the way forward. We are now playing our part. We have graduated from the ills of yesterday. the machinations of other nations on our economy. We are saying to farmers who return land and water or access to water, here we are moving water 18 kilometers away. How can we not move water a kilometer away, 2 kilometers away? The task is to extract value, to enhance the reality to the 10-point plan which was enunciated by His Excellency.
A military representative said food security is integral to national security. It is important to bear in mind that food security can also be a catalyst to social unrest, hence the need to work hand in hand with the Zimbabwe National Army in sharing ideas on how to boost productivity in Zimbabwe's agricultural sector.
Without food security, you cannot guarantee national security. And what I'm seeing here today is work by Arda in an effort to improve our food security. We have partnered with Arda on other ventures other than this one. We are here to look and see and learn as to what is happening here. With the innovations I'm seeing here, where Arda is partnered with other players in the economy to open up land and create all this irrigation that we are looking at will contribute much to food security in the nation as a whole. They say a hungry man is an angry man, and an angry man can do anything. And all this will lead to a lot of insecurity. So as Defense Forces, we are, or we consider food security as a very important aspect. I'm very impressed with what I've seen here today. It shows that we are, or we do have the capacity within Zimbabwe to do these things for ourselves, and we are able to ensure that we are able to feed ourselves and not to be a nation where we have the land, we have the resources, and yet we still have to import food from other countries. This is a very good example of one such partnership that Arda has gotten into with local players to produce food that will feed the nation and also improve relations with the local community around this area, providing jobs, providing employment for the local people.
The resuscitation of agricultural production at Ingwizi Estate is also benefiting surrounding communities through employment creation, provision of food, as well as irrigation water for outgrowers and their livestock.
Siyabonga kakhulu ngayisibona i-development le esiyenzakelela ngoba sokusinike imisebenzi, sokusinike ukudla, sokusenza ukuthi ilizwe lethu liphakame kube kuhle. Konke indlala asoze sayithola. Labantu abethu lathi sonke sesiphilile.
For more on agriculture, join us in the second segment. You're watching Economic Forum. Welcome to the second segment of Economic Forum. Thank you for staying with us. And our guest in studio today is Mr. Bezo Nyabadza. He is the board chairperson of Arda. Nyabadza, tunatenda nikuya ku program.
Yes, good evening.
Now, there's a trend that has started with Zimbabwe. Not started, but it's a trend that's been going on with Zimbabweans where every season, people are planting chibage, and then at some point in the season, chacha. Every other year, chibage chacha, there are no rains. The rainfall patterns have changed. Sometimes they're sporadic. You don't know when it's going to have we're going to have a dry spell. So, shouldn't Zimbabwe be moving to small grains? Should we be increasing our production of small grains?
We call it a nasty habit, which we must desist from. It's very clear now. Climate changes with us. It's taking its toll. All of us are testimony to the unusual weather patterns which are now part and parcel of our annual seasons. So what we are saying that, yes, we've been used and brought up on maize diet, but we cannot sustain it. As we speak now, as a nation, as an economy, we are importing maize to augment what we have in Zimbabwe. It's now clear that we cannot continue. There must be mitigating measures to be put in place. We used to feed on millet, rapoko, and sorghum. Those crops have disappeared now because all of us went on to be very much attached to maize and maize meal.
Which was an import, really.
An import, yes, initially. But more importantly, not just us, but our animals. They're all feeding on white maize. We cannot continue under the current environment to maintain that position of production. We must diversify, and mankind must lead. We are saying, Zimbabweans, let's take climate change seriously for the good of tomorrow.
But what is our fascination with maize? You've already highlighted that it was not really part of our original staple, our original diet. Is it not time for us to go back to our roots now and say, you know what, the maize doesn't work anymore. Let us go to these better varieties of food.
In a way, the Zimbabwean government has gone out of its way to support her people. But sometimes people need to realize that there are limited resources which we have as a nation. So it's unfair to expect that if there's a drought, still I want to be fed by maize. I think it's unfair for Zimbabweans to continue to have that mentality. We have to play our part. Our climate gives us options. We are fortunate that at least a dozen crops do well in this economy. If we take our 62 districts throughout the country, excluding Harare and Bulawayo, we grow a variety of different crops. And it is that balance which has been lost because of this approach that we must have maize year in, year out. It's impossible anymore now. We have to go back to rapoko, a serious hectarage under rapoko, a serious hectarage under sorghum, a serious hectarage under millet. That's the way forward. 2007, 2008, we experienced hunger. We had to import food, huge amounts of food. And the introduction of Maguta, some of us welcomed that notion. And it's a noble notion. More importantly, it was coming through our military. When all is done, the military will be standing because they have to defend the sovereignty of this nation. Food security is critical. Food insecurity has got national security consequences, mostly negative consequences. So some of us still believe that there is a place for Maguta, if you like, a drift to command agriculture, where at least if you grow tobacco, if you grow cotton, you must still put a hectare or an acre of maize.
What do you mean by command agriculture?
Command agriculture is to say that we still have a budget outlaid by the national government, and people receive inputs. If you receive inputs, so we expect you to grow some crops, not to have the luxury of simply saying, I've received this seed because I'm in the vulnerable category. Now I can grow my wheat, or I can grow my tobacco, non-food items. So we are saying there is need, and the best authority to bring that on board, I believe, is the military.
Shouldn't that be the government, the arm of the government that is dispensing some of these inputs? Because I know there are input schemes, like the presidential input scheme, that goes and gives inputs for free to certain farmers, small-scale farmers, so that they can, get food and we can have food security in our nation. Shouldn't that be the responsibility of that arm of government in terms of saying, okay, for this region in the country, we're allocating rapoko only. We're allocating millet to this region. We're allocating maize to the other regions.
Well, there are no free inputs. Someone is paying for that. And it is that habit of realizing that even if I don't grow anything, I'll get something. That's why I think we are missing it. Now, we need water. We need to produce under irrigation schemes. A rain-fed production is perhaps a thing of the past. So command agriculture, enforcing that the little we have, let's do it for the nation. But are we growing the right seeds, the right crops in the respective districts? This is where I think there's a challenge. With a military input, that can be assured. And some of us believe that the military must be involved, not only to involve when there are consequences on the scene. They must come in now, because I believe that is the best way forward. We have got different ecological regions within Zimbabwe. We used to have 1 to 5.
Yes.
I suppose it's still there, but really we are all drifting into a desert type of agriculture now. Fortunately, as we speak today, some countries within the region retain surpluses. Can you imagine if there was no surplus within the region? Then what? That's how vulnerable we are. So I'm saying we have capacity, surely, as Zimbabweans, to make a choice.
Very interesting suggestions coming through from Mr. Nyabadza here, talking about command agriculture, where we might involve the military, talking about eating these small grains even in schools, hospitals, and prisons. Join us in the next segment of Economic Forum. Welcome back to Economic Forum. This is the third and final segment, and our guest in studio today is the board chair of Arda, and he's also a prominent player in the agricultural scene in Zimbabwe, Mr. Bezo Nyabadza. Now, before we went to the break, we were talking about issues of small grains, issues of Zimbabweans shifting their mindset in terms of farming. I want to move on to another pertinent issue. Now, part of the reason why we invited you to the studio today is because looking at the parastatals in Zimbabwe, there seems to be some inconsistencies in terms of applying issues of corporate governance and even productivity, and even going towards revenue generation and relying a lot on treasury in terms of getting their day-to-day needs met. Arda seems to be leading the way in terms of being innovative, in terms of coming up with different solutions, of offering solutions to farmers, even going to the extent of having estates where you're going and investing with public-private partnerships, and getting into farming, getting into the dirty work.
That's true.
How successful have these public-private partnerships been? And do you see this as the future for the rest of the parastatals, or it's just working for others?
Let's start on two key issues. The government of Zimbabwe came through with two critical policies, which were announced by